Good afternoon, I'm Sean Yao, and this is One News Now. A magnitude 6.3 earthquake rocked southern Luzon today, also jolting parts of Metro Manila earlier this morning. To tell us more about that, we have Ishmael Narag, OIC of the Seismological Observation and Earthquake Prediction Division of PHIVOLCS. Mr. Narag, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Why was the earthquake felt as far as Metro Manila, as well as some parts of Central Luzon? We understand it originated somewhere off of Batangas.
Yes, that's true. As of 10:19, we were able to locate the epicenter of the earthquake offshore Calatagan, Batangas, and it appears to be associated with this subducted slab along the Manila Trench, which is about 108 kilometers. The epicenter was located around 108 kilometers. Try to understand that waves travel more efficiently at depth because the material there is more denser. And if you try to imagine waves as acoustic waves, we understand that sound travels faster in solids compared to, let's say, less dense material. So that's why the felt area is wider compared to shallow events. And aside from the fact that it's actually a magnitude 6.3.
All right, Sir Ishmael, you mentioned, or actually PHIVOLCS issued a warning that aftershocks could be expected, as well as damage to property and other structures. Did you in fact record more aftershocks after this quake?
We did record around 11 aftershocks. It's lesser compared to shallower events because the mechanism is more associated to deformation of the slab rather than the typical stress transfer that might be experienced for crustal events. So when I say stress transfer, whenever a fault moves, much of the force that is or the stress that is accumulated along faults are being transferred to the surrounding area that might also activate nearby faults. That's why they would also create earthquakes such as aftershocks.
All right, Ishmael, just one question, of course, to clarify, and because none of us here, or almost no one, is, of course, a scientist. A lot of people are worried that this earthquake had something to do with the unrest over at the Mayon volcano. Can you tell us, for the record, whether or not these two events are related? You did say that this earthquake this morning off of Calatagan was tectonic in nature and not volcanic.
Yes, that's true. It's tectonic because it's related to movement along a slab that's subducting along the Manila Trench. However, this is not related to the activity of Mayon volcano because that's a different system. It's more or less related to the subduction of the Philippine Trench, which is actually feeding the magma requirements or along the conduit going to Mayon. If we're talking about Taal, it's a different magmatic system. So I guess it would be more related to Taal volcano. That's why our immediate concern after the event is to understand what is happening in Taal volcano. So it was reported that there were some cases of landslides along the crater rim, but not too much increase of the parameters that we are monitoring related to the activity of Taal volcano.
All right, so just to clarify, no relation between this earthquake this morning and the unrest over at Taal volcano. Of course, both are in Batangas, yeah?
Yes, Taal volcano is in Batangas area. So it's also our concern. Currently, the alert level in Taal is alert level 1. So we're actually continuously monitoring the status of the volcano.
All right, any special reminders to the public, especially during and after an earthquake? Just for the record, and because this happened today, I heard that we also have reports that some students who were evacuated from their school, of course, they panicked and fainted. How do we avoid these effects? What are good things to keep in mind? during, yeah.
It's always important to plan out things because we're living in a country which earthquakes often occur. So at least if you decide to live here in the Philippines, you will experience at least once in your lifetime a very large earthquake. So that's always important to know what would be the correct behavior whenever an earthquake occurs. You do the duck cover and hold procedure. You try to understand where you want to evacuate immediately, and you follow the safety rules of the establishment where you are in. So recently we've concluded a simultaneous earthquake drill. That's always an opportunity for us to test all of our response procedures and try to improve on them whenever there's an opportunity and test it out every quarter. So it's also important to understand also what's the standard operating procedures of every building, our neighboring building and barangay hall, so that we may be able to liaise with them whenever we need their resources.
All right, thank you so much for taking time out to talk to us this afternoon. Ishmael Narag of FIVOS, thank you so much. Moving on now to other news, a Chinese Navy vessel has docked in the Philippines for the first time in 5 years. The Chi Chi Guang, a ship of China's People's Liberation Army, dropped anchor in Manila yesterday. The Philippine Navy says that the goodwill visit is proof of the strong ties between Manila and Beijing, despite the ongoing territorial dispute in the West Philippine Sea. Meantime, international affairs analyst Renato De Castro reinforced the idea of the visit as a symbol of friendship between the Philippines and China. Nevertheless, De Castro says this does not erase China's unjustified actions in the disputed waters.
China is doing one thing, having this gesture, but on the larger picture, China is doing a different action that, of course, casts doubt on whether China is actually sincere when it comes to trying to, of course, earn our goodwill.
And despite China's aggression, De Castro echoed President Bongbong Marcos' statement that the Philippines should not cut ties with China.
We have problems with China, we have issues with China, but at the end of the day, we have to deal with China simply because China is a neighbor. China, of course, is a big power in the region.
We're going to pause for a short break, but One News Now will be back with more stories after that. Keep it here. You are still watching One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. The Trade Department says that online shopping platforms are equally liable as their vendors who sell defective products. According to Trade Undersecretary Ruth Castello, deceptive sale is the top complaint of online shoppers. These are products being hawked by sellers that look completely different once delivered to customers. Castello even cited complaints of some shoppers receiving boxes of wet wipes or rocks when they ordered expensive mobile phones and other gadgets. Recall that last week, Trade Secretary Alfredo Pascual asked Shopee and Lazada, the country's largest online platforms, to explain the deluge of complaints from their customers. Those found engaged in deceptive sales can be held accountable for violating the Online Consumer Act, which has a fine of as much as 300,000 pesos.
Merchant lang siya na nasa labas, siya lang po mag-isa. Pero kung nasa loob po ng platform, Sir Aljo, pati po platform kasama doon sa pinipenalize natin. Bahala po sila kung sino sa kanila ang magbabayad, pero kailangan po talaga nilang bayaran yung penalty.
Moving on, most private Catholic school students are not in favor of reviving the mandatory ROTC program. An online survey conducted by the country's largest association of private schools showed that more than half, or 53% of students, disagree with bringing back the mandatory military training. 28% of the survey respondents agreed with the proposal to bring it back, while 19% are undecided. The Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines, or CEAP, conducted this poll between April 3 and April 24. CEAP says that the survey is meant to get the collective opinion of students on the mandatory ROTC bill. So far, the bill has been approved by the Senate Defense, Higher Education, and Finance Committees.
Anong mga dahilan? Number one, it is not necessary. I think CEAP believes that there are sa panahon ngayon, there are a lot of issues that our government should also mag-focus doon. Pangalawa, making it mandatory, nawawalan ng kalayaan yung mga kabataan natin na pumili. And of course, yung threats of abuse and corruption must be addressed.
Let's now take a quick look at today's other top stories. Pope Francis is expected to be discharged from hospital in the next few days after undergoing surgery to repair an abdominal hernia. The Pope's recovery is reportedly progressing normally and without complications. The Vatican has canceled all of the 86-year-old pontiff's public and private audiences until June 18. The MMDA will soft launch the actual use of handheld ticketing devices next month. The first batch of these gadgets have been distributed to the local governments of San Juan, Quezon City, Valenzuela, Parañaque, and Caloocan. The ticketing devices can print citation tickets, validate and authenticate driver's licenses and vehicle registrations, and check whether the driver has incurred demerits. Former Senate President Franklin Drilon claims that the Senate's prestige has eroded due to some members' lack of proper decorum. Recall that over the past weeks, several incidents have caught the attention of the public, including one of Senator Robin Padilla not knowing what to say in a plenary session, and that of Senator Bato de la Rosa kneeling as he implored resource persons to talk. Drilon says that the Senate leadership should immediately address these issues. One News Now will be back with the latest stories at 6:30 p.m. I'm Sean Yao. We are One News.